everybody. Welcome to a new edition of Therapeutic Thursday with me, John Quick. We're beginning a new series in a slightly different format. We won't be actually going live, but I will be doing a series of recorded interviews with people. And my first guest today is Molly Thomas. Warm welcome to you, Molly.
Thank you.
Molly will be joining us in a moment, but just a little bit of background. First of all, to remember to like and subscribe, please. And a little bit about me. Some of you may know by now that as well as having had aortic issues, including initially a type A dissection and aneurysm, now nearly 20 years ago, I had emergency open heart surgery, prosthesis and a mechanical valve was fitted. And then shortly after that, I had a type B dissection down into the bifurcation in my legs from the aortic arch. And that has been defensively managed with medication ever since. And many of you will know the ups and downs of that and things I've said about it before, which will no doubt crop up as well in these interviews. One of the things I try to do therapeutically is to bridge both sides, if you like. So as well as bringing a therapeutic angle to the show, I also am down in the trenches with other people as well. And talking of which, one of the effects of having this issue in my life when it happened was it brought about many changes. I'd always been interested in psychology and how the mind works. And I started doing various trainings, gaining some qualifications, working with charities. And that's what has led me to now with Aortic Hope. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Molly. And we're going to be talking about how life has been 5 years on, which I think is where you are now. But perhaps we can begin with something that cropped up 10 days ago, I think it was, when you reached out to me having a little bit of a crisis, and we worked our way through it. Would you like to tell us about what happened?
Well, for the first time in 5 years, I forgot to take my medicine. And that just threw me for a loop because I'm super organized with it. I sit down twice a day and I write it down in a notebook and I count everything and I'm on time. And to wake up the next morning and look like I did not have the entry in the notebook and the pills were still in there, I completely panicked. So yeah, I did reach out to you because there's one medicine in particular that I was really concerned about, and it's the blood thinner. It's a heavy duty blood thinner. And I didn't know what to do. So I did reach out to you and you talked me off the ledge.
So straight away, it's not difficult to surmise that not for the first time, and it won't be the last, what we're talking about here is fear, isn't it? And you were afraid. Can you remember some of the things that I said and what my strategy was?
Well, you really helped me with that because you mentioned that you had forgotten it too and reminded me that I probably wasn't the only one to forget medicine. And so that was a little comforting. And nothing major happened when you forgot yours. And you also pointed out that, these medicines, if it were that serious to miss a dose, we probably would, I don't know, we wouldn't be taking them ourselves, or, there's a buffer of time.
Well, I think what I said was it would be a very, very fragile situation, yes, wouldn't it? And I'm not encouraging anyone to miss their medications, but we are human. It can happen. It's happened to me. As I also pointed out, the blood thinner, which is the one you're talking about, was bothered you the most, is more because it's a very capricious drug. It's quite subject to changes, which is why it's regularly tested, and it tends to kind of have a faster interaction in the body. The point I was also making is with blood pressure medications and things, they build up in the system. So, it's not like if I was if I was to miss my medication, that it's suddenly going to plunge. It shouldn't do. But obviously, if you missed it over a few days, that's what would begin, it would begin to go down perhaps considerably, depending on one's condition. I think the other key thing I said to you was, and I'm not sure if you remember this, that you probably cause yourself more stress, more raised blood pressure by getting in a kind of tiz about it than just kind of doing the acceptance and saying, I've made a mistake, I've messed up, we move on.
Yeah, I was in a little bit of a tiz, and you're right about, I just remembered that part where, you know, that medicine is already in our bodies, so it's still working. It's if you start missing 2 and 3 and 4 doses, that's where things get crazy, or messed up. But yes, I mean, I was fine to miss 1 dose. So yeah, that really helped out to think about that. And I consequently turned to the clinic who monitors that medicine, and they were nonplussed about it as well. So it made me feel a lot better. I calmed down, you know, within a few hours of talking with you and talking with them. And it was just a reminder of this whole medical condition that, you know, you're never too far away from it.
Absolutely. But what we can do straight away there is we can accentuate the positive, can't we? Because here you are, you came through that mini crisis. It shows the resilience in your own body. It shows that the medication is used in a defensive way. You know, it's not the be all and the end all. You know, all of us could still need surgery irrespective of the medication. So, you know, it's not like, I remember missing one tablet. I think it was about 3 weeks after I'd come out of the hospital. And I was in a complete panic about that because I had no kind of context on what it all meant, missing one. There wasn't the information available that there is today. But now I have, you know, a very different kind of perspective on it. I try not to miss them, but, you know, I have done. And here I am too. So, yeah.
Here we are.
I'm trying to emphasize there the importance of kind of not overstressing these things, that we can make mistakes, but don't make it worse for ourselves by getting in too much of it is and then pushing our blood pressure up.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So you're 5 years on. Would you like to give us a little bit of a recap on the history of what happened and where you are today?
Yes. Yes. So 5 years ago, or beyond that, I was diagnosed with an aneurysm. I had gone to the doctor for high blood pressure, and I insisted on seeing a specialist, a cardiologist, and got on the appropriate entry-level medicine and was monitored. And they discovered an aneurysm down the road and continued to monitor me. So the aneurysm in of itself, I wasn't made to feel like it was a big deal. So I didn't make it a big deal. I was surprised I had it, but as we went on in time, and this is about a period of 1.5 years, it was discovered that it had grown. And I consulted with a few surgeons and several surgeons to see, you know, what is this? What's going on? And I was loosely told about what an aortic dissection was, and that it was kind of referred to for men, usually older men, maybe a little bit more on the unhealthy side, which, you know, as we know, that's a myth. I mean, it's not a myth. It is still accurate. However, it involves a lot of people, a lot of other people. So having that knowledge, I had scheduled, there's a lot of in-betweens here, but I had scheduled a aortic surgery, the Bentall procedure with I wasn't sure of the valve yet. And I had scheduled it at the end of March for the beginning of May. 2 days later after I scheduled it, which was just terrifying to schedule that surgery, I left my house in a hurry in the morning to go run some errands, and that's when my aortic dissection occurred. I was heading to my friend's house, and this pain came over me. awfulness, and I just knew it was critical and it was crucial that I get help. And that's when I started the loudest advocating of my life. I was just screaming, get me to the hospital and get me to the OR. I'm having an aortic dissection. How I knew that, I don't know, but I just knew something was really wrong. And I did. I ended up in the ER and was still advocating loudly. So they believed me when I said I was having one. They threw me through this CAT scan, and next thing you know, I'm staring up at the surgeon. So this all took place in about 20 minutes of entering the ER. He looked down at me and he said, "So I understand that you were scheduled for aneurysm surgery." And I said, "I want the Bentall." I still laugh at this. "I want the Bentall procedure and the Onyx mechanical valve," and then lights out. And he told me later that someone, because I had cardiac tamponade and pericardial effusion, and I had dissected all the way down at that point, and I had ruptured too. I found that out later. I had a small rupture. So I was pretty critical. And he told me later that he had never had a patient so close to croaking tell him how to do his job. So that was a little funny with my story. I look back on that just thinking that was me in an emergency situation. I was just trying to take care of business. And moving on through that, it was a successful surgery. It was 8 days in the hospital, and then the recovery began. And that's, where life, I realized, had changed. And yeah, that's pretty it in a nutshell.
So it's a real standout moment, the way you kind of took control there. And your work has been as an air stewardess. Is there a parallel that it was kind of like, get the emergency chute out and all that kind of thing?
At the time, well, at the time it was happening, I obviously was in a mode, and I look back on it, and the only way, although it's a little bit my personality anyway, not to just kind of, sit there, usually take a little bit of charge or what have you. But I definitely believe, looking back, that my training as a flight attendant and emergency training and just awareness and, the 1, 2, 3s of what you do in a crisis, that just came in naturally. It just showed up. And obviously very grateful for that, because it got me to where I needed to be that morning. And I think yeah.
So you weren't driving the ambulance or anything like that?
No, but I was telling him how fast to go. I said, "What's this guy's name?" "His name's Mike." And I remember just yelling, "Mike, drive faster. I don't have," he goes, "We're 5 minutes out." I'm like, "Make it 2." I mean, it was me just really scared. I was really, really fighting really hard. And, I look back also and think, that adrenaline that I had going, I wonder if that didn't help keep me afloat, because
quite possibly, yeah.
And so,
well, if people have a cardiac arrest, they pump adrenaline into them, don't they? So and the body will do that naturally, I think, as well in a crisis. But what's interesting is there's a dark humor to this, but the very fact that you're laughing about it and I'm sort of smiling along with you too is a good sign in itself, isn't it?
Yes, you do overcome that initial fear and fright and trauma. I mean, you come out of it. It's not like that forever. That intense feeling is not there forever, at least not for me. And in talking with others, it's not with them either. It's just time takes care of these things, softens it a little bit.
So can we put a little bit of meat on that then and talk about that? Because that's a very relevant issue and has been for me too. My own attitude, the what one might say is the decline of fear. But do you feel that about yourself, that you've become more resilient emotionally about it 5 years on?
For sure. Yeah, initially it was debilitating. It was being dropping to my knees without realizing it when I heard an ambulance or loud noises or the fear of an explosion, just these real traumatic noises and events were forever with me. With every step I took, I thought things were just going to implode, explode. I knew I had the presence of mind at the time, even though I couldn't control it. I knew that these things weren't going to happen, that they weren't going to happen, but I was still afraid of it. So I couldn't figure out how to mitigate that. I went on with it for several years. I will say today, I'm still startled by fast movements, loud noises, but I'm able to, understand what it is. No, it's not going to do any huge damage, or that it's, sometimes I don't really laugh about it, but I do kind of take a breath and kind of smirk a little bit like, okay, it's still there, but it's not as bad as it was. And there was a moment in time where it was bad enough that I needed to do something about it.
So we're talking about PTSD there, aren't we? And what happens to us with noise is very, very common. I remember the first time, about 3 months on, I went to the cinema and I just couldn't tolerate the sound. I couldn't, it was too loud for me. So can you talk a little bit about PTSD and how that felt for you and how you feel you might have progressed through that?
So that's funny you should say that about the cinema. When I go to the movies now, I bring my AirPods and put it on noise canceling. I can't handle that noise. It's excruciating. It scares me to the point of tears still. So I just wear headphones, and the one time I forgot them, I actually had to walk out of the theater. It was, some kind of shoot 'em up movie. But anyway, so yes, I understand that. So I endured all this, loud noises and trauma and PTS, which I didn't really put a name to it, early on for a while, for about a year and a half, or maybe it was 2 years. And there was a point where I felt like ready to restart my world and my life. And I had decided to go on a trip to New Zealand. It was going to be a 2-week trip, go to New Zealand a week, and then go to Australia, Melbourne, for a week. And I was going to be surrounded by really, really good close friends. And I was,
of course, you're very experienced with flying, so it wasn't going to be a big deal for you, was it? Like it might be for other people.
I was riding a bike. I did that 3 to sometimes 4 times a month, going down under, and it was I had been doing this for 25 years. And so It was no big deal. And again, I was being supported by really, really, really close friends. And so I was ready and set to go. And the last thing I did was kind of shower up and get changed to go. And the bag was packed at the door. And while I was in the shower, I was going through in my mind what all this was going to look like. And I had done this already for weeks prior. So I was readying myself to go. And somehow, some way, it hit me. I totally broke down. I don't know if it was a combo of a panic attack, anxiety attack, PTSD attack, whatever it was a lot all at once. And it was debilitating. And needless to say, I did not go on the trip, and subsequently was kind of scarred by that reaction. I was surprised. I thought I was good to go. And it wasn't until I started talking to some other Aortic Hope friends that I've now made over the last 5 years. And they kind of just listened to me talk of this incident, and they're like, they had their little smirks on their face. They knew good and well what happened to me. I just wasn't aware of it. And they said, Molly, we've all been there, done that. We've sought therapy for it. You are experiencing PTS, and your body has told you you're not ready to go. If your mind thought you were, your body was telling you you weren't. And they suggested I talk to someone. And that's when I met you.
So there's a lot there, and I just want to make a couple of points about that. So again, what we're dealing with is plain fear, and the body knows, doesn't it? And emotions will always win out over the rational thought. If there's some unresolved issue. And this is why what good therapists work with, it's all very, you've got the symptom, but what's going on underneath? And so there you were, this very experienced flyer, but your body was instinctively telling you, no, don't think so. Perhaps because there were so many things that were going to be out of your control. And I think one of the things that can happen to us after this kind of experience is we all seek safety. Everybody seeks safety in life because it's on the opposite shore to fear. But particularly with this condition, I think we can kind of come back into ourselves and withdraw somewhat, and everything becomes very carefully thought through and managed in order to remain safe. And most probably what was happening was your body was going, this doesn't feel very safe to me. I'm going to tell her. And it did it in very dramatic fashion, didn't it?
Yes, and it was right. I wasn't ready, and I wasn't ready for another year and a half. So it's my mind was real strong on it, and my body was like, no, we got to override this. So you're absolutely right, and you put that into perspective also, and that was very helpful. So
you decided at that point then to talk to a therapist, yes?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
And yes, and you were highly recommended. And even though, you were far, far, far away, I had never had therapy. So I always thought it should be a one-on-one in person. But I chose you because you had the experience of what I had. Nearly identical, you and I. And I'll tell you, that was the most important part. And once I got past the online part, which was a minute, it was very easy to talk with you, and you were extremely helpful. And I'm so grateful that I was referred to you. So, and very helpful, very, very helpful.
So obviously I should point out here that everything we talked about remains confidential, as it does in the therapeutic session. What you are talking about now is entirely at your own discretion, but maybe we can talk generally about some of the things that you learned from talking with me. Would you like to share some of that?
Well, we talked about so many things, and I think that in of itself was helpful. Just talking to you, even if it was talking about your dog or something, I don't know, but just that ease of knowledge, and also knowing that you were so many years ahead of me in your I guess recovery from this, and your experience and how it went for you, and how well you're doing. That in of itself really gave me a lot of confidence. We talked about fear and what that is, trauma and what that does. And we talked about giving ourselves the grace to, not feel good or not do something that routinely I would do. Slowing it down a little bit, being mindful, taking breathing sessions, imagining a more peaceful, kind of that happy place scenario. Gosh, it's so much. We talked about so much. I just feel like I've just kind of taken it in and adopted it. And so putting words to it is difficult.
I think one of the things that I do and we did was we talked about the universe of your life in a way. And because nothing is unconnected and everything feeds into it, fed into that moment, what might have been happening in your life before that moment, which maybe stressed you, whatever, and what life has been like afterwards, and how it changes relationships, doesn't it? And it changes relationships with family and anyone you're close to, how that the stresses and strains that might come with that, how that might be managed. Yes. The importance of maybe educating people around us, the importance of being kind of patient with ourselves as well, forgiving oneself, like I said to you about the medication. Yes, and just kind of simple things like, and basic, which can sound very corny and cliche, but they do work. It's like, okay, well, I've made it through another day, And I also think the strategy, which I always stress, that what we're really talking about here is fear of our own demise. Yes.
Mm.
And I've always encouraged people that we all know it's going to happen one day. But I came across a good quote the other day. I'm just going to, excuse me, get to fish it out. Give me a second. Um, oh, yes. The quote was, fear does not prevent death, it prevents life.
Mm.
And
Mm.
that can be so relevant to people who've had dissections and aneurysms like ourselves, that if we're not careful,
Mm.
we are so afraid that we stop living in a way. So I think we worked with some of those challenges, didn't we?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes. And I think that applies to people in that watch and wait stage of aneurysms, and they just stop everything. And I think that could have happened to me, but I didn't have time. I had 2 days to worry about my watch and wait surgery before
Hmm.
but yes, I think yes.
I also remember you talking about the way that you did kind of retreat from the world as well. You talked about being kind of curled up in a ball with a on the sofa. And would you like to say a little bit more about that? And because you've developed a lot out from that, haven't you now?
Yes. So I was always on the go, whether it was flying across, 18 hours to Singapore or what have you, very much on the go and very athletic and outdoors. And so my life was just full, going, 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 going. This happens. And after I got, on my own 2 feet, um, I have it wasn't the sofa, but I have this lounge, this nice cozy chaise. And I found myself there a lot and I loved it. It was my little happy, cozy place. And from that point on, I mean, obviously I was still majorly recovering, but I really liked it. And I kind of liked it more than being out and about and doing all the, you know, fast paced, meetups with friends and traveling. I really liked it. I got to learn that I like the slower pace of my life a lot. And so that's what came out of this is I slowed it down to a screeching slow pace, and that worked for me. And it just took out a lot of noise, a lot of activity and noise that was around me. Not it was all good stuff. I didn't have anything bad going on. It just was a lot.
Hmm.
And I think with this surgery and medications and stuff, a lot doesn't work for me. And a lot of activity and noise doesn't work for me anymore. I like just, simple and quiet and slower. So that's what I learned from it. That's what I took away from that. And I did not ever get depressed throughout this time. I was warned that sometimes this surgery can cause, temporary just depression. I didn't have that. I just had that worry of, what has just happened to me? Am I ever going to
Hmm.
get
Hmm.
normal again? So,
So the slowing down and the kind of almost like it sounds like you discovered a new lifestyle for yourself. Could you see that as a kind of like a positive thing from coming out of such a dramatic, traumatic experience?
I think so. I mean, I still do everything I want, but I get to pick and choose it, and I get to say no. I get to say no without any, regret or, consequence. I just say no if I don't want to do it.
Hmm.
If it's too much or I foresee it to be too busy or too much, too loud, I just say no. And so, yes, a positive came out of this for sure. I really like my pace of life now. Love it.
So one of the terms I use, and I most probably used it with you, is positive selfishness, where I think it's very important with this condition that we do need to put ourselves first and be able to say to people, which can be very difficult because, you know, it's classic, don't judge a book by its cover. We can look out all right on the outside, but nobody knows necessarily that we're struggling inside, or going up that hill has been difficult, or that set of stairs, especially if we have a bit of pride and we don't really want to share that our legs are going wobbly. But that I stress that idea of that we do have to put ourselves first because
Hmm.
we just do.
have to. I mean, we can't endure the rest of the world and that weight and what's going on there. Got to look out for ourselves first. That's where I just kind of came up with that give yourself grace mantra that I adopted early on when I couldn't do certain things or was too tired to do it. I just would go sit down and go, give yourself grace. You've been through a lot. And I still do that. And I think that selfishness of looking out for yourself is so important.
Yes. And have other people sort of noticed that in you? And have some people found it harder to adjust to than others? Because, like I just said, it can change our relationship with ones who are close to us, can't it?
Yeah, I think no, my family's good and my close friends know. I mean, there's been a few people that are just like, who is Molly? You know, what happened to her? Where'd she go? I don't care. They can have memories of me before. Yeah, because, that's just the way it is. That's just the way it is. And I think a lot of positive has come out of this in some ways.
Okay. In talking and setting up this interview, you talked about what you described as the invisible side of healing. Would you like to share a little bit of that with us?
Well, you kind of mentioned like you can't judge a book by its cover. And I feel like that's the invisible healing is what's going on that you're not talking about or not outwardly showing. And, you can be absolutely out of breath, but concealing it, or you can be in pain or fatigued, but you still do something. And no one really would know because they're looking at you thinking, well, you look fit, you look fine. Your surgery was a year ago, 2 years ago, or whatever. And so on the outside, you look fine, you seem fine, you're acting fine. But on the inside, there's still healing going on, constantly healing physically and emotionally. And that's the invisible side of healing. And I think what I learned from that was just having empathy for, people, because you don't know what they're going through. You don't know what's going on inside of them. And that's another cliche is, don't judge a book. But with medical issues and physical trauma, traumas, I don't know. I just think that the healing is constant. It's constantly going, and we still have to go about our day, and so we just don't show it. We don't talk about it.
So you come across as a person who is like very confident in the world. By your own admittance, you were here, there, and everywhere. Now you've kind of slowed down. Do you think in some ways it's made you more aware of other people and their needs and made you perhaps more empathic, and that life can be a struggle for some people?
Oh yeah, for sure. Especially being involved with Aortic Hope and hearing everyone's stories and listening in on, what they're going through. And every single person is different. There's so many different degrees. But definitely, I was thrust into a very serious medical condition community. And before that, I never had a problem. So this was very different. And so, all these things that go with medical conditions, all the doctor's appointments, all the mess that goes with it. Yeah, very, very, I do empathize and understand a lot better. And it has helped me a lot to, help other people too.
Right. Okay. So Aortic Hope then has been obviously a very big part of your life since, hasn't it? And I think you said to me before that finding Aortic Hope and the forums really kind of also helped within your recovery.
It did. It came about. I didn't really know what happened to me. I mean, though I said I did, I didn't really know the details of what had happened. And so it was for 7 weeks of recovering from this that my family left. I had them for 7 solid weeks. I had friends come in, taking care of me, looking out after me. And when they left, it was just awful. Oh, I was so scared to be by myself. And of course, I got busy with it on the internet and found Aortic Hope. So long story short of it, I jumped into a support group, and that's all she wrote. I mean, unbelievable the amount of support I received, and just the sheer knowledge that I wasn't the only one that this happened to, that there were
Mm,
others, and the
yeah.
wide spectrum of people who were a lot better off than me, or worse than, there was just that whole spectrum that you could just listen to it and understand. And so from that point on, I was a pretty solid participant in the support groups. Just reading about what they had thrown up in the blogs. So many, and there was a point in time where I was asking for donations, and of course, when you're out of work and you know things happen in life, I thought, what, the way I'm going to donate is my time. So I started donating my time, volunteering my time with Aortic Hope. And it's been about 4 years, a little over 4 years, and I'm a co-social media director. I'm on the board of directors as well. I'm very busy with Aortic Hope, and so happy that I found it. It is just an amazing organization.
What's significant there, I think, is when we have a condition like this, it can feel very lonely. It can feel very inside one's own head in a big kind of close-up, can't it? And I think finding a tribe where people are wearing the same costume and is
Mhm.
tremendously reassuring, isn't it? It's like, oh, it's not just me. That person has the same symptom. They feel dizzy in that way, or they're really slow in the mornings, or that medication makes them feel bad, in their stomach too. That's so vital, I think, isn't it?
It really is. And I think that's one of the things that most people will respond to the support groups, is just feeling like they're not alone anymore. When we have people that have come to support meetings that have lived with this, them all by themselves for, 13, 14 years. They discover this group and they're like, oh my gosh, where have you been all my life? I mean, it's
Yeah.
really helpful, very helpful to have that commonality.
Yes. So, by way of moving towards closure, although, one of the interesting things about this condition is, do we ever really get closure? But you have some daily practices, don't you? And things that you've done to kind of, or try to do, to keep yourself on the road of recovery. Would you like to share some of those with us?
Yeah, yes, and yes. So just going back to speaking with you as a therapist, that was very, very helpful. That really got me started on this where I am now. And
Hmm.
I did Tom Basserer is a 40-year veteran of mindfulness, and he teaches an 8-week course. And when he offers it, I encourage people to sign up for it. It's really great. So learning mindfulness. So those two are kind of the emotional and mental therapy that I needed. And then, of course, cardiac rehab I did. And I just had a routine in the gym. I
Hmm.
walked anywhere from 1 to 4 or 5 miles anywhere in the mountains, or not the mountains, but the hills or the beach. I swim. I'll do a water fitness class. It's an hour long, and then hop in and do maybe anywhere from 10 to 30 laps. So these routines, and then there's yoga, and I was doing Zumba for a while as well. So I just sprinkled them all around. And so I'm busy every single day doing something physical. And that has really helped a lot because, one, I needed it. The medication put weight on me, and that wasn't very fun to realize. But with the exercising, it makes me feel good. And I feel it if I don't do it. So it's definitely a part of my routine.
That's great. You're doing a lot more than I am, I have to say.
Well, it's not all at once. But I sprinkle it. Like I'll make work out in
Yeah.
the gym and go for a walk, or I might do the pool and then the gym, or pool and a walk. I won't do all at once because I realize that when I do overdo it, it's definitely overdoing it. And that's a real
And
possibility.
is that a thing which but you can struggle with? It's like knowing that point where, oh, I've overdone it, knowing where the limit is.
Yes, I've done that a few times. The first was right after surgery, and I was doing a little bit of walking, but I was feeling good. I'm competitive, so I was doing a little bit more than I obviously should have because it put me into AFib. So that was a no-no. Take it slow. But about 6 months later, I went on in the heat of the day. Why I did this, I have no idea, but a 6 mile round trip hike through the hills. So there was some ups and downs, but it was all to see this darn waterfall. And on the way back, I was like, I wonder if a helicopter can land in this field and pick me up. There's no way I'm walking 3 miles back. I did it, but I came home and went, never again. I'm not doing that. I don't need 6 miles. I don't need hills. I don't need heat of the day. So yeah, it's lessons learned. So
Yeah.
give myself
And
praise.
again, fear rushed in by the sound
Oh,
of it because you felt so exhausted.
yeah, and I was pretty far away. So the
Mm,
only way out was that. But I took it super slow. And so I did. I learned that, just dial it back
yeah.
and take your time getting back. It's these little
I've certainly
things.
had moments like that where I remember playing paddle with some friends, and I've never quite got to the bottom of this. The paddle was in itself was okay, but it was when I stopped that I had the problem.
Oh,
I think there is a kind of physiological explanation for why that is, which I won't get into now. But I felt terrible, and of course, if we're feeling terrible, everything crumbles around us, doesn't it?
yeah,
Life becomes very small when we feel really, really bad. Um, but it's a challenge, I think, with this condition, isn't it? Knowing where the limit is, whether that be moving furniture around or doing some weights and things. And sometimes we only learn through experience, what feels okay and what doesn't.
right, right. It initially, in the beginnings, I keep saying that, but God, that first year is so crucial. I did one thing a day. One thing a
Mm,
day was all I did, and that was all she wrote. That was it. That's back to my lounge chair. And, as time went on, I learned more, but, doing too much is just too much. It's just a lesson learned,
yeah,
especially physical exertion and not just running errands, but like, walking, gym, pool. That would be too
mm.
much in one day.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yes. Yeah, well, and we have to be careful with that. And even if you're an athlete, professionally, you still have to rest, and the body needs that kind of rest.
Exactly.
Okay, I can see the clock is telling me we haven't got very much time left. So as we're coming towards the end of this session, I know you might like to add one or two things, but I'd personally like to thank you for coming forward today and talking to us about your experience. It's been inspiring to see your journey and how well you're doing. So hats off to you there. I know as you said, you're very involved in Aortic Hope, so that triggers me into reminding people to like, to subscribe, to buy the merchandise, to get the t-shirt.
Yes, that all helps because it is all donation. It's patient led. No one gets paid to do these volunteer positions, and so yeah, we exist due to exclusively donations. So, yeah, thank you, John. Thank you for your time with Therapeutic Thursday, and I appreciate always talking to you. And
Thank you very much, everybody. Look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye for now.
thank you, John.